you can make some serious progress on working on your own head. Now, again, some people need to talk to somebody else. It's okay. Like I said, we could, you don't have to go to a therapist or psychiatrist necessarily, or a counselor. Sometimes you can just, work with a coach. That's why coaches are helpful. They're helpful because they can look at you, right? They can go by what they see. And, as we've said in previous video series, even the very best of the best have coaches because we all have those blind spots, right? Great, athletes have coaches. So you have a quarterback who has a quarterback coach. There are quarterback coaches. Now, is the quarterback coach a better quarterback than the actual quarterback on the team? No, right? Is Tiger Woods' golf coach, a better player than Tiger Woods is? Absolutely not. So how can they coach them? Because they know all the principles. They can watch you from the outside where you're making mistakes or where principles are going unapplied. So the coach is very helpful for that. But when it comes to fixing your own head, again, self-awareness, watching your worldview, and realizing that, in the end, it's going to be about changing beliefs. So when it gets into the nitty-gritty, how are you going to have the therapy session? It's kind of like when you go see the therapist, right? Imagine yourself kind of reclining or laying on the little couch or whatever, and the therapist has a, pen and piece of paper. What are they doing, right? They're asking questions. They're writing down responses. They're making notes to themselves, and they're going to start asking you questions. Most therapists, if you sat down and talked to them, a lot of their sessions are repeats in the initial ones because they have to get at the root of what someone is contending with. So first they give them some form of an application and a questionnaire. They got to get some idea of where somebody is right now. Then that person comes in and they begin asking questions based on the initial discovery questionnaire that they filled out. And so that begins the discussion. But you ask a therapist, they'll say most sessions begin the same. They're asking the same sorts of questions to get at the deeper root of what's going on, to really find out how someone perceives things. And they can tell by how they describe their situation. Do they get more animated when they talk about certain people in their life, right? They can tell by what they hear, what they see, what they observe. Now, when you're doing this for yourself, you can basically follow the same sort of process. Again, it's not as thorough as it would be with a coach, counselor, or therapist, but it will do wonders for you. Get out that pad and that pen and start writing down things. Start interrogating yourself. Begin with the areas that you're struggling with now. Let's say it's something financial and you just say, man, I have a poverty mentality and I'm just always worried about money. And, I just feel like I'll never make any more and I'll never do well and I can't get, well, then start writing that down. Start asking yourself sincere questions. Write it down. Ask yourself, what is my belief about money? Right? What do I believe about money? And write an answer down. Ask yourself the question, do I believe that there is not enough money in the world to go around? Is that my belief? Is it my belief that if I make more money than someone, it's because I'm taking it from someone else? And you say, yes, that's what I believe. At least that's what I feel. Then ask yourself, is that true? Write it down. Is that true? Now, you may not be able to answer out of your own head. You may have to go online. You may have to read a book or something, read an article, and because there's people who talk about this and realize that, okay, well, somebody explained it to me. I watched a little YouTube video. Somebody explained it that no, if I make more money does not mean that I'm taking that money from someone else. That is a false belief. And so you've got to write that down. You got to write down that it is a false belief for me to believe that if I make money, it's at someone else's expense. Because if that's what you think and believe or feel, well, then that's what's going to govern you. And so you now, Okay, have to begin to have therapy sessions with yourself, because a therapist is not just going to be able to tell you, hey, if you make more money, doesn't mean it's taking from someone else, doesn't mean that's going to change the way that you think, right? You're going to have to go over this again and again. So you might have to start breaking it down somewhat. Again, writing to yourself and say, well, why do I think it's taking from somebody? How would that possibly happen? How would myself making more money, how would that mechanically work? How would what I do and someone paying me money actually take from someone else? Tell me how that works. Make the connection. And usually you can't make any connection. It's just a belief that you had based on narratives that you were told. You were told by politicians that, well, the rich are rich at the poor's expense, or vice versa. And maybe there are some that do that, but that does not mean that that's the case all the time. Every situation is different, and you have to look at them that way, right? Every situation is different, and you have to look at it that way. So this is self-interrogation. This is self-therapy. It's talking these things out, writing these things out until you can begin to uncover, maybe start asking yourself even that question, where did I get this idea from? How long have I been believing this? And try to figure it out. Maybe you can write down the date when it started, right? Maybe it was a documentary you saw. Maybe it was a book that you read. Maybe it was your upbringing. Something your dad always said at the table because you guys couldn't make ends meet and your dad was always complaining about somebody, right? Maybe that's where it came from. But you have to start interrogating yourself because that's exactly what a therapist would do with you. Can you dig it? Hope you can.